Our Siouxland communities don't always have the manpower to take care of every community need. For 10 Northwest Iowa towns, consolidation is the key when it comes to city inspections. KTIV's Connor Trett explains.
About 3 years ago, my city clerk and deputy city clerk were being bombarded with calls, nuisances, building permits, fence permits, anything and everything. And they were being frustrated. And then they passed it on to us, but there's only so much we could do. So they came up with the idea of a multi-city inspector.
For over 3 years, Moville, Iowa's Mayor Jim Fisher has spearheaded the plan for what may be the state's first multi-city inspector. He will serve 10 communities spanning 4 Northwest Iowa counties.
The building inspections, that takes care of obviously the buildings, the new buildings going on, remodels, things like that. The nuisance abatement is, we go by the IPMC, International Property Maintenance Code. It's more the mowing of the grass, the keeping the cars off the yard, paint falling off of buildings, and then I go and do other towns as well.
For us, it gives us access to an expert that can handle things, make sure we're doing things correctly, legally, and in best interest of our town and our citizens.
Adding a full-time inspector to these smaller communities that might not have had the manpower to take care of all their responsibilities can add a big boost to the city's productivity. Issues that might have taken them months or even years to resolve in the past can now get taken care of in a matter of days or weeks.
Within a few days, he can do our inspection, check things out. Within another few days, he'll send out letters as far as nuisances, parked cars on lawns, tall grass, and within 30 days, they have an opportunity to go ahead and take care of this.
The new inspector has only been on the job for about 2 months, but in that time, communities have already seen big changes.
You turn into Correctionville, there was a building there that was just horrible. I mean, the roof was gone, half of the roof was gone, and that's totally been cleaned up because of this. It's just a matter of, I think they know now that it's time to do something, that we're starting to pay attention.
I hope to get cleaned up. You know, when I was a kid, I'd go with my grandpa and we'd go fishing at different places, and we'd drive through some of these towns, and they were just beautiful little towns, and they've kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit, gotten run down, and it's nice to be able to be a part of helping getting them cleaned back up.
Connor Trett, KTIV News 4.
In the future, the communities hope to expand with more inspectors serving more of the surrounding communities.